Hello, PIckathon universe. Hello, people, good people out there. It's been a while. Welcome to episode 34 of the PIckathon podcast. This is a podcast kind of about discovery, just kind of creative journeys, whatever we can kind of dig up with great people. Today we have the best people, say she, and it's going to be a really fun episode. And it's the kind of things that I think about and kind of tying into our guest today, is just kind of fun, uplifting, just like substance and positive, a lot of heart, but hard hitting and kind of just super creative. And what's cool for me in all of that kind of like juice is it just kind of describes a lot of the people we have. And since we last, we had a podcast, I think there's quite a bit of drama that's happening in PIckathon's world that we are kind of getting a conditional use permit. So this is the perfect kind of place to give you an update. We've been asking, we now know, and there'll be a newsletter out, so this might be breaking or not, but on the 27th of this month, we'll have a public hearing, and that will be a decide for whether we can continue the festival at Pendarvis Farm for another 10 years. And so it's a weird process to kind of apply for something like this in like a city, like we're a hospital or something, but it is what it is. And the cool things are pretty cool. Like we asked everyone to write letters, which was, something that our community really showed out for. And kind of the score of like positive and kind of against is we had 4 letters that folks were kind of just annoyed with. It wasn't like terrible kind of stuff, but we had 1,500-ish letters of support.
Wow.
Excellent.
That's wonderful.
I'm not surprised at all. And I have to say, you said, it's interesting because why are we applying to something like this when we're not a hospital? But I will say PIckathon is medicine for the masses.
Thank you. Yeah.
Like anyone who's actually been a part of that community knows, like it's like almost like that mob mentality when you're in a crowd in a protest. You get that rush and that surge of energy because you feel like you're bound to each other and you're working together for a common purpose. It felt like that community energy existed in that festival, but it wasn't for like a protest, but it was for a communitarian kind of coming together, and it was like a healing experience to see that people cared about ecology and can celebrate and party at the same time and enjoy music and the arts and good food. And so, I'll just correct you. Like it might not be a traditional hospital, but it is definitely a place of healing.
I would second that.
It's pretty cool. I mean, like this is like a vulnerable thing. Like, you almost rather, it's a lot of, you don't know how much your opposition you have, but it turns out that if you talk to people, and you just like have conversations, most people are pretty reasonable and they're into it, like, so the big choices for that kind of location out in, in the suburbs which is it could be this 100 acres could be a bunch of houses, take down a couple thousand trees and it just could be houses and apartments, like more, or it could be something cooler. Like it could bring, all the kind of cultural and ecological and just something much more inspirational, like that the farm owners really have been wanting to be. But it's like this epic story of like whether, these scrappy people like us and the farm, we're not like investors, right? We're not sitting on like mountains of money to do all this. So it has to be kind of community support and pulling together kind of like neighbor support, the city support, and it's pretty wild to just be so vulnerable in that process because we just don't have any certainty. We don't even know if we're going to have a festival this year until the 27th of February, but we had 100% planning on it. And, that's kind of like how we've always operated. Let's be optimistic. This is too good of a thing.
Yeah.
And too irrational to like, let it just kind of like, and in something like us, we just don't move to a location. We're not like a parking lot festival or a field festival. Like we're married to like the the space we are. And in this case, it's a beautiful, like place and has trees. And so we kind of, everything is designed custom like a glove to that piece of property. And, as much as folks always say, hey, you guys should move and do this kind of place somewhere else, it would be a totally different thing. It would be married. We just kind of think of it that way. It's like, we're never going to be a pop-up festival doing the least amount of stuff that you'll put up with, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's an amazing Labour Party left-wing quote that comes up every time there's an election back home, and I always love this, and I feel like it applies to the situation too. How you were saying you're carrying on planning as if it's going to happen, and we need to find ways of making hope possible and despair less
Yes.
convincing.
Yeah.
And I think when everyone comes together and hopes and campaigns and lobbies, and I think our Say She crew, we know all about getting people to write letters.
Yes.
We even wrote a song about it, which is called Norma, if anyone who doesn't know. Write a letter to the state. Yeah, the power of letter writing is unbelievable. It's so cool. It's not write an email, it's write a letter.
That's an incredible song, which I know is off of your guys' new record, that Silver, that was kind of a reaction to while you guys were recording, right? What is the story behind that song? Because I think it is cool.
We were writing. We were in LA, and we were having our writing camp, is what we like to call it, with our guys, Sergio, Dan, Sam, and Dale. And we had been writing songs, and I don't remember which day in the week, like which day it was, but we had just heard the news, and any plan we had for any other song for that day went out the door, and Norma was really the only thing that could come out of us, because we were in such shock, dismay, and fear came over me, and as I'm sure it did Piya and Sabrina, just like, how did we end up here?
And here being Roe versus Wade was overturned, right? That was this. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, I should have included that for the listeners. Yes, we heard the news, the possibility of Roe v. Wade being overturned, and we just could not believe our eyes and ears that we had ended up here, because I guess we had taken it for granted in our lifetime that was something that was afforded to us, like rights over our bodies. And so it wasn't something I totally didn't expect it. So yeah, we had no choice but to write that song that day, because nothing else was going to come out.
It's really cool though. It's like an uplifting song at the same time. Like I was listening to it. It just has this kind of like you're taking in this message while you're feeling positive. So it's like hopeful in a way.
Well, we want you to dance.
Yeah, I totally.
We want to dance. We want to protest with our dance and our music. We want everybody to feel empowered and strong and able to write the letter, to stand up for what they believe in. We want to inspire and just motivate. So I think that is where we were coming from with that.
I think also, I remember us talking about this. I worked in Parliament and in politics for a long time for the leader of the Green Party, and we always were talking extensively and doing a lot of research or commissioning research. How do you actually reach people? If we want to get people to recycle, or we want to get people to care about lowering their carbon emissions, how do you actually communicate it in a way where they're not just like feeling like they're being preached at or shut down, or they're just like, rolling their eyes, or change the channel, turn it off, whatever it is. And we realized that like a lot of the messaging prior to that had always been like, you haven't done something, like almost scolding and shaming
Mm-hmm.
people, like you're bad at recycling. And they thought that was a really good technique, like, oh, let's socially shame people into recycling, and then the shame of their neighbors seeing that they haven't separated the bottles will make them do it or
Yeah.
something. And then we realized that doesn't actually work, because behind closed doors people won't do any of these things, and in their personal life that's not being scrutinized, they won't make any changes. And actually the best way to
Mm-hmm.
reinforce things is through like positive messaging. So I love that you said that, because without us really like Nya says, you want you to dance and be uplifted, but at the same time hear the message that is meant to keep you hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, why should we put a sad song with a sad message, for listeners? There's enough sadness. It's time to kind of energize people into action. So I
I
think
love that.
that bass line probably does most of the work,
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
it? We don't have to do much.
I love that. I mean, we've kind of discovered that too. Is like when you bring so much talent from not just music, but just like art and design, it kind of has that kind of really, and you really think about it from people point of view, like it just, festivals are a weird business because they're so cutthroatly trying not to build anything experiential, because there's no profit to that. They don't really care. So they just hire the artists and that people will go see and put up with stuff. And we're like, wow, it should just be this awesome experience. And what happens in that, people are open, right? They're just taking in all this kind of inspiration from, and the music, and whatever kind of disposition they thought they had, they can, when you come at them with that positivity and that kind of visceral kind of experience of like music, like you guys do, they're open to it, right? I mean, you find that, and then that's a powerful force.
Absolutely.
The amount of care and just like sort of planning that went into each detail of each stage and each like eating area and each green room, it was just so, it was really unlike anything I've ever experienced before from a festival. Like, I will never forget, I think it was after our performance in the early evening on Saturday, we went and watched Lee Fields literally in like this canopy of trees. And it was just,
it was so beautiful.
It was so cool. It was
special.
like, and that's not even installation.
Special.
That's just the land itself. It was like so unbelievable and really like just really special. And then, and then just like we ran over to this other really cool little like tree enclosed stage for a private performance. Like it was just so incredibly amazing for us. And
definitely one of my favorite festivals.
I mean, shouldn't all festivals be like that? It's just like, it's like bringing in messages to like your guys' music. I always think that all artists should use the power of what they have, and I don't know, it just takes work, to be that way in the world. But it's like, if like you have this positive force, you can really shape it. It's, for us, the big thing that's happening now is we're like, okay, we have all these incredible people. Now, how do we grow? We're like thinking of mentoring. Like, we're like, okay, all these amazing artists are coming together.
Yeah.
What if each of these areas, which we call like neighborhoods, what if we kind of like, we have architects and builders and designers? It's getting ridiculous. Like, they just want to come have fun. So they're like coming to this, but we're like, okay, well, what if you guys, mentored some kids that just don't ever think about this stuff in their lives? And, we've been doing a little bit of that. We've been building like tiny homes out of stages, or mentoring girls that build. And that has this kind of like transformative effect when in that environment, right? Like they're open.
I love that.
And their lives change. They're like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. And smart people connect to each other and they get jobs, and it's cool. Like,
no, it's incredible. It's good people attract good people, right? And it's like whatever is happening in that community, on the farm, the people of Portland, like we also just have seen, like from performing from that, people, like so many people have come back to our shows like subsequently after, following that festival, that it's just been so beautiful to see familiar faces come back. And now we feel like we really truly do have a community in Portland.
Oh yeah.
Because of PIckathon. Like it's been incredible for our career, and we're so grateful. And just like every single person who was working with us at the festival, and just everyone that we kind of interacted with was so incredibly just generous and sweet to us. Like we really can't say enough. Like about how wonderful it was.
I will never forget that first night on Cherry Hill when you were there and all the girls in the front. Did you see like all those teenage girls
Oh my God,
and
I'll never
boys?
forget it.
They're
It
just
was so
singing.
special.
Oh my God, you just changed their lives. I bet you half those girls are like, I want to be that.
It was so.
Well, that the going back to what you were saying, sorry, Sam, I didn't mean to talk over you, but I was just so enthusiastic when you were talking about the fact that you're doing these kind of almost like careers exchange advice things at the festival, because there's not that many places to reach people of different socioeconomic groups
No.
where you can have an impact on their lives. And I think that green spaces and festivals, the access that PIckathon grants, because I think it's one of the more affordable ones as well, that it is just, it's really special that outreach is being done, because basically it's up to schools typically to do these kinds of careers outreaches, or local parishes and churches, and we know that religion is taking much less important place in people's lives, and I'm for that personally. No offense to other people, I think that's better because it hasn't served us that well for the inviting, but that's my personal belief. But either way, we're lacking a lot more community spaces than we used to have. Even the library is not once what it used to be. When we were kids, we would go to the library and take out books. Now everybody uses the internet. Parents don't have time to drive you down to the local library, and the local libraries are shutting, by the way. And half of them, luckily, some of them are being repurposed into creches and everything, but there isn't spaces for young people who are at that place in their life where they need an influence that has to come sometimes from outside of the family.
Yeah.
Especially single parent homes where, you maybe just don't have another perspective from a parent of the opposite sex or something. And I do think that it's very important and valuable that young people are spoken to by adults outside of their families and influenced. And I think that festival culture is something that definitely changed my life growing up. I've seen it impact my stepsisters and my nieces' lives completely. The confidence that grows in them when they go to a festival and they're out there in the big, bad, wide world, seeing different artists and also making friends with people from all walks of life, not just their school friends that they've been in a classroom with since they were 5, it's huge. They never stop talking about it. And I remember my early festival days still to this day, as a grown woman. And that was the chill and the goosebumps I got when I was at PIckathon, because I could see that you guys had taken the time, like Sabrina had said, to make the spoon and fork on either side that's carved out of wood as a memento.
A spork.
And yet a spork, yeah. And everyone wants to keep that. And it wasn't about, hey, recycle your plastic, use less waste, please keep your things. You gave them a gift that they wanted to reuse. You gave them something that was a positive thing, and that was like encouraging ecology, but without lording it over as a message that you must,
just
please do.
Part of it, yeah.
I still have my mug.
Yeah.
I love
And
that mug.
Yeah, do you guys have
Bring
a bowl
it now
too?
and show you.
I didn't get to
yeah.
come. I didn't get the bowl, but I wish I'd kept mine.
I think the idea that young people can, it opens their mind to say, oh yeah, I don't have to it just shows them there's so many different things that you can do in life. If you have an interest in art and you want to, use your hands, you can go and build the stage. That's a job in life. You can, you can design, you can work as part of the, the people who are preparing all the food. Like there's just so many different
architecture, building,
exactly.
The engineering, AV, all that stuff. We're kind of like,
really cool.
We realized, it's really hard to get like all the best talent that you possibly know, up and down the West Coast in one space, right? And so we've been kind of playing this on TV. Oh, we're like a top 10 festival, right? Critically, but we are like the tiniest festival, like on purpose. We're probably like we're 50th of Coachella, right? But people always, we try to play that on TV, and like the influence side is like when you bring all these smart people together, they love it. And we just realized that this year, like, okay, how do we expand that? We're going to start a nonprofit that just basically takes all of that design, build communities, which culinary, all the mentoring, and challenging those people to kind of mentor just bring in people that wouldn't have this exposure, and that project-based thing too is important because they get to see it, right? They physically manifest this thing and they're blown away by what they did, right? And that's and some of them are so talented that they just all of a sudden get picked up by these super other talented people to be in their lives.
Exactly.
And and they don't even have to be young. Sometimes they're like lost middle, like they're just kind of they're talented, and then all of a sudden their lives change. It's really powerful, and it's kind of a conundrum in the United States. Like how I think European festivals have more funding and are more like subsidized. There's none of that in the United States. So like the drive in the United States to do something cultural is profitability, and you strip out all the good because it costs money. And we're like,
but that's the thing that I feel like needs to be communicated to the local board. Who is it who's deciding, by the way, about your
a city planning commission?
actual license?
They're
But it's
lovely.
not the city of Portland, is it?
No, it's the city of Happy Valley.
It's the city of Happy Valley, exactly. So I think it's easier in bigger cities because there's precedence and it's something that's a safe decision. Because, by the way, I have a lot of respect for local lawmakers. They have a thankless job in so many ways.
100%.
And often, if they don't say yes to things, it's because they're worried about the impact because there isn't enough evidence to show what the impact could be. So I have a lot of time and assurance. And I think what it really is up to is the people who are who go and have seen the benefits to share that evidence and to talk extensively about what the experience is and what the value is, because social capital and social value isn't always quantified in the way that we analyze and assess things. Economic value is also at the forefront of this festival, that all the vendors that came and made money, and there's the impact, for example, to the other artists. We know our ticket sales have certainly been much more robust from having been at PIckathon. So you've helped sustain careers of other artists that can carry on to other cities as well and globally. And so the impact isn't always measurable straight away, but it's so deep rooted. And I really believe that there needs to be a shift in thinking about festivals, like you say, from instead of seeing them as private enterprises, let's just grant all festivals who've proven that they have a social justice cause at the heart of it. Let's grant them the ability to have tax breaks. Let's let them actually flourish in the communities and bring in, do work with the local schools. They could come in and do recycling campaigns. They could give some free tickets out to the local members through the libraries for lower socioeconomic groups. You can derive so much benefit for not just the people who live in Happy Valley, but also the surrounding councils. They could get involved in some of the programs.
Oregon, just everywhere.
Yeah. And especially if you're in rural areas, people need access to community in ways that they don't have. And I think you can just get these rural pockets of poverty. People tend to think of rural areas as very wealthy. It's simply not true. There's a lot of poverty that exists in pockets as well that could be reached. And it's something like a festival where people can get work experience or just life experience or access to talks can just be so powerful. And I really think PIckathon could end up being one of those beacon leaders in the same way that Glastonbury was or Shambhala was in the UK.
I love that.
They started as local festivals with ecology at the heart by a bunch of hippies that people used to roll their eyes at. Oh, the hippies want to hang out in that field? I'll let them. Next thing you know, they're changing the world, literally. So, never underestimate the power of people who care.
I love it. I mean, if we're successful, I kind of feel like we have this US kind of like experiment that is unique because there's no subsidies, but there's lots of foundations, right? There's all this kind of like, because they're not taxed, people have a lot of money and they have to give it back, right? So in the US, it's almost has to figure out how you would manage the profit and nonprofit part of a vision, right? And like just taking kind of 15 of these different neighborhoods that you experience, just something like 20, but we're like taking 15 of them. We're saying like, okay, each of them, you need to have a passionate cause to kind of impact something, whether it's during the festival, maybe it turns into like public art somewhere else after, maybe it's a year-long program that involves these people. Maybe it's, what is it? And they're so excited about that because everybody kind of deep down that wants to give back, and you really think a lot of the folks that we connect with. And I don't even know what all how much impact we can have. But I think it's like an aha moment this year. I'm like, oh, this is how we can do it, because we need to kind of grow that as this kind of new nonprofit part of what we do. And I know if it works, I'm like, and I want to like tell everybody you guys all should do this. And you can have the festival, because it's hard to have a profitable festival in the United States. It just is, unless you go big.
Yeah.
So
Sab, I was going to ask you, what was the name of that organization? I remember you were saying that you had met the guy from, and he was all about trying to connect artists to different social justice causes and finding time and spaces for while we're on the road. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's called Show Up.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're actually going to have a chat with the founder tomorrow, just to sort of, connect with him, because basically they help you, like, working around your tour schedule. They help you kind of like do like work in sort of like mission-based work and nonprofit sort of stops on your tour route in the secondary and tertiary markets, so that you can, do something aside from just the performances, like something that's sort of giving back, like while you're on the road. So we're chatting with him about some of the causes that are super important to us as a band, and how we can kind of get more involved in the communities in each of these.
That's so great.
Yeah, in each of these cities, and sort of like outlying cities that we pass through on the road.
That is so cool.
I can share that information with you after this as well. But they're really, really incredible people. One of the people on the board is the guitar player from Black Pumas, Adrian Casada. There's a few other. Really,
I know him.
Do you?
Yeah, he's a really good dude.
He's really lovely. He's such a good guy.
He's been to PIckathon probably 4 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In different bands, including the Black Pumas when they were tiny.
Nice.
We're very close with those guys.
In Austin, they had a few hometown sort of like big sold out shows. We went and opened for them, and then had the pleasure of kind of spending some time in Adrian's studio the next day, and shot a little music video there. So that was really lovely.
Adrian's got his hands in so many great things. Like, he just is a positive influence in so many ways. Mm-hmm. Like, musically, he's just incredible too. Like, he's Brown Out, Grupo Fantasma, like everything I've like, is Adrian involved? Okay, yeah, bring it. Like, we've had it.
Totally.
At least 4 different bands.
Yeah, he's just done so much for his community, and I didn't really know that until I talked to Matt from Show Up. So it's just nice to sort of kind of, rally with the people who care about that stuff, and that's something that's definitely important to us.
Did they do a bunch of stuff in Austin? Isn't there like a big project that Adrian and that organization did with homeless?
I believe so, yes. I don't know all the details of it, but they're all very close, and trying to. I know that they're doing something at South by this year, a big campaign. So, and then there's a summit that they want us to come to. So there's a lot of like really interesting things happening, and they're trying to bring the artist community together so that we can use our platform for some good.
I think our friend Tara Nectar, who's played guitar in Say Shishi before, he subbed out when Sergio, Sergio Rios, who's our producer and our other guitar player. Sometimes he has studio sessions, and Terence stepped in for us, and he's an incredible musician from Topanga, but he's playing with the Black Pumas now as well. And we all went to his studio, as Sabrina said, to record this little music video. It's become like an extended family. And he's so humble, and you go into his studio, and there's just Grammys everywhere you turn. And
exactly.
We're like, wow, there's even a Grammy in the loo.
So amazing.
They played Curation back in 2018, or like the first year right before they blew up. So like the same one you guys did, which was so fun when you guys were down there and got everyone dancing.
What you're saying is Curation is what blows you up.
It's tiny, but back then it was a TV show. There's actually a really great episode on YouTube. Like before COVID, we were like toying with the idea of this music mixed with food and the creative kind of connection and influence between them. And we had this grand plans, because we've always had like idea that we're going to keep everything intimate, but we're going to make this amazing kind of like creative content that that can be bigger, right? So we don't ruin like a dinner for 80 people or 100 people. We want that to be special, but can we tell a story? Can we kind of create that something out of that? And that was like one of the biggest years when we were doing that. It was actually Billy Strings and Black Pumas who knew, and they were both on the Grammys, I think, in like 2020. They both were playing like a couple years later. So
wow,
so cool.
Curation is such an amazing experience for like anyone who doesn't really know what it was, and we certainly didn't. We'd never been to PIckathon before we came, but it was an incredible experience from before the festival started. Getting a call from this incredible chef who is Filipino origin mixed, and wanted to know all about our band and each personality and who they were and where did they come from and what were their influences, and basically made this incredible meal,
so good,
this coursed meal, and served in the most idyllic setting, hidden in a little tree enclave in the woods, with beautiful flower displays and things that would been picked locally, and or local florists who were did all the flower arrangements, and people were just so. It was just like being in a fairy tale land for this insane dinner. And when you're on the road, you do not get to eat food like that, and to have it being made for us.
Yeah,
it was so.
You guys were so great, though. It was so fun. You guys uplifted and got everyone out of their seats and were dancing, and it was just like so ecstatic. It was so cool to see that energy you brought and made it. When I was there, I loved it. I was like there with my whole friends, and we were just. You guys were dancing in the crowd. It was just so ridiculous. Like it feels totally ridiculous to like even say like, and yeah, it was so fun. I mean. I want to like kind of go back though. I want to tell your guys' story, like how you met and started, because I think it's really interesting. Because let's go back, because you guys aren't from the same places. You grew up all in different places, right? Sabrina, you're from New York, right?
I'm from upstate New York.
Yeah, I'm from the DC metropolitan area. But lived in New York for many years. I went to university in New York and kind of never left until recently. So, but yeah, DC metropolitan area for me.
I was born in DC, actually.
You were?
Yes, first 5 years before I moved to Kentucky. So I'm like, I kind of grew up in Kentucky, though.
Okay.
Wow, that's a big culture difference, isn't it?
Very big difference.
We have a cabin my dad built out in the Bull Run Mountains by Middlesburg, if you know where that is out there.
I don't know where Middlesburg is.
I don't know the other towns to point at, but it's kind of exurbs of DC. It's like 30 minutes.
Okay. I'll have to look it up now.
And I guess I come from London. I suppose people could probably hear British accent maybe, but I was actually born in the States, and
wow.
I left before I was 2 years old. My dad's family had been in England since he was 11. They were from East Africa, but British citizens. And I guess when Idi Amin kind of took back Uganda, as he rightly should have, the rest of the East African Indians that had been sent there by the British kind of went back to England.
Wow. So
that explains sort of why the British Indian roots, which not a lot of people in America know. People often ask me, but how come you're both? And so it's very common in England, obviously. I'm like, oh, we're like, how the Latinas are considered, like, that's what we are, the biggest immigrant population probably over there. But yeah, always had this American passport and was just like determined to somehow get out of Dodge and Blighty when there was a conservative election, and decided to move to New York because I had got a job with a think tank that was called the Institute for Children Poverty and Homelessness, and ended up moving into this really sweet, cheap, because your NGO salary in New York, you got to live in the little cheap digs or whatever. So I found this little apartment in the tenement building, and Sabrina lived below me.
Oh, wow.
And even though I had this full-time job and everything, I'm still a night owl, and I didn't want to miss all the shows as well. So I would probably come in quite late at night, maybe like 3 or 4 in the morning sometimes, and be like inspired by some show I'd seen and maybe singing and not realizing that the walls are a bit too thin. And poor old Sabrina was being kept up every night by me. So she decided that she was going to get me back by doing her warm-ups early in the morning and make sure she knew she had to be up too. And so did I.
That's
And
awesome.
eventually we became friends. And if you can't beat him, join him. So she thought, I better go and make friends with her and tell her to stop clumping around in those big ass heels of hers. So that's how we met. And Nya and I had met a couple of years before that, in a house party in Harlem. We had two boyfriends who were friends, and we always laugh and say the same thing. But we got rid of them and we kept each other.
That's awesome.
And it was like years of just being friends in the city and going and seeing shows. And
Was that 2018 you met then? Was that run?
yeah, but before
Earlier
that,
than
actually.
yeah.
Yeah, earlier than
Yeah,
that.
I
So
think Piya and I, we
2
met
years
like
before.
2016, I
20,
think.
yeah,
Or
2016 it must have
2015,
been. Well,
2015 or
2015.
16.
Yeah,
2015? Okay.
And
yeah,
Pia,
Wow.
you guys were all in different bands. Like, it's like Pia, you were in like El Michael's Affair and did some work with Chicano Batman too. Like,
And so did Nya, and I also backing sang for them for a little bit too. And
cool.
we were in different projects. We were in another little project together. Sabrina used to be in a project with
79.5.
79.5, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Sabrina was in another project with a friend of ours who's helped us write. And we used to go and basically see each other's shows
Mm-hmm.
and support each other
Mm-hmm.
and, kind of get merry and then go see other things and drag each other to other things.
Yeah.
And then it just became really evident that it was time to be kind of together singing and also not be at the mercy of like other people's sort of life decisions. Some of those bands broke up, some of them people moved to different places. And actually you realize from being in New York that the most security you'll find is in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of us were ready to have like a bit more stability and growth and have more time in the writing room to express ourselves in a place that was safe, where someone wasn't going to sort of say like, oh no, that's not good. And we never do that to each other. If there's something that we think isn't working, we have a little like thing with each other where we say, okay, if you're going to say no, come up with another idea. And I think that makes our writing sessions really productive,
Mm-hmm.
because if something isn't feeling right, that's important. But how do you communicate that in a way that doesn't make your writing partner shut down or feel ashamed or embarrassed or like not good enough or something? Well,
So
what if
great.
there's another creative idea that's even better that makes them encouraged and enthusiastic? And it's just like that's, I think, been the secret ingredient to the way that we communicate with each other in the writing room.
That's amazing. And so you started writing your first record, I'm guessing COVID came, right? Or somewhere in that mix. That must have been kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Of course, that changed things pretty drastically. With the intention with what turned into the album was actually they were meant to be demos at first, but the quality of the tape recordings are so beautiful that we just thought, okay, this is our project for COVID. We're going to produce this and make something out of these recordings as our sort of it really was like a sort of a COVID project. And eventually we were able to once there was distance, you could do social distance stuff. We were able to kind of get into the studio to do the vocal overdubs. But as far as the music and the production and everything, it was kind of all done during that time.
At Daptone, right?
We actually recorded it at our friend Joey Crispiano's studio, which is down in the basement in Dumbo. But he had been gifted the tape machine that was used to start Daptone that Gabe had given him because I think he had done some work on a Womack Sisters record that had never come out, something to do with the label. I don't know if I'm allowed to know this or say this on this podcast, but there you go. Full disclaimer. But so Gabe had sort of said, here, look, take the tape machine. And so Joey was all excited and wanting to learn how to use it. And then he got the studio with our friend Benny, who's also part of Benny Troken, who's part of Daptone or the community. And he's on Wick label, which is a kind of subsidiary label or a section of Daptone that has more kind of rock inspired stuff, which I love, everything on that branch or arm, however you want to call it. And so the two of them had this studio, and everyone, all of our friends would come down there. And Joey says, "Oh, I got to make rent next month." I said, "Well, how much is the rent?" And he told me, I said, "Well, it's not that bad. Tell you what, we'll just do some demos, and we'll help each other out." And that's really how it happened, for real. And
Really?
we called a band together. Our friend Nikhil Yarawadika, who played bass for Antibalas for years, and he was taking a little break to work on some solo stuff, so he was around. And he brought in Andy Bauer, who was our drummer. And that was the day that we recorded Prism. Most of the songs on Prism was the same day that we met Andy. Can you believe? And
That's crazy.
yeah, he's amazing. We just had taken some recordings and all the demos that we'd had, because we'd been playing the shows out, trying to workshop some of these songs. And we had like live recordings or whatever, and we just sent it to him. And lo and behold, he came into the studio and just killed it for us, and it was really amazing. And put the band together. And Matty McDermott was on those recordings too, playing guitar, incredible guitar player who Nya and I had played in 79.5 before with as well. And it was just like a community of people coming together, and all of our friends. And then we got Victor, our friend Victor Axelrod, to come down and play keys. And Max Schrager, who's been in the Shacks, is also in that world, came down and produced one of the tracks and added some keys here and there. And everyone was just like helping each other out.
Sounds like a fun party, a musical party almost.
That's what the studio's like.
That's so great. And you had written some of those songs just kind of like in your guys' in the apartment there?
Yeah.
Or like, where were you guys writing? Yeah?
Yeah, most of the songs were kind of either written like around the computer, around a piano, the stuff from Prism. So it was definitely different to how we recorded Silver, obviously, which was with the band. So you can tell there's a very drastic sort of like difference in the sort of, the feel and style, just because, writing around a piano kind of lends itself to more soothing, slower, maybe soulful things. And then with the guys, we can really let it rip, because we've got the whole rhythm section behind us.
Yeah. Silver was totally different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it the same folks? Like, who did you pull over from Prism over to Silver, and because that was recorded in that was down in Hollywood, right? You recorded that.
Yeah. So the head of Coal Mine Records sort of set us up on. We were trying to just, we had a trip planned out to LA, and he was like, "I think you should go meet with a couple writers," and Sergio Rios is one of them, who is our producer and who owns a studio called Killian Sound.
Mm-hmm. And he's done stuff with Alicia Keys and Oregon and Neil Francis, right? He's really well known. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, CeeLo as well, which I love that.
Yeah, and we didn't really know what to expect, and we were kind of just like, just being bratty and kind of just over it, being like, "Oh, we have to go to North Hollywood and do this today. Okay, fine." And then, we ended up just going there, and really, we had like a nice little hang in there in the kitchen there and making coffee and just catching up. And then we wrote Forget Me Not kind of in that day in like 2 hours or whatever it was. It just kind of like happened really fast.
Over coffee.
Yep.
We weren't being that bratty for no reason, though. We were like defensive because we thought that like, don't tell us who to write with. Why are they making us go all the way to Hollywood? We're from New York. We've got all of our friends already. Like,
Yeah.
And so in that sense, we were being a bit like, whatever. Who are these guys? And then, of course, when we had them, we were like, we ate our words.
Yeah, telling us what to do.
We couldn't deny the chemistry.
They happen to be like some of the most lovely human beings.
That's so great. And is that the band is that the people you met, and is that your band today?
Yep.
Correct. So then we were like, okay, well, we obviously we have a really great sort of like vibe with these guys, and we came back and did the whole record with them. So all of Silver.
It's dreamy.
It's
dreamy.
It's pretty wild that you recorded all of that live. I mean, that's a hell of a band, and you guys are a hell of vocalists to do that without insane number of overdubs. Like, usually you'd track that whole thing, right? And like, that's how you'd kind of come at it, especially that kind of music.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it for sure, and the joy of it for sure, because it's like doing it in that way really forced us to kind of not overthink it and just to trust our initial instincts on the songs and with the songs, and those guys being such great musicians, basically allowed us to do that. Like, you trust them to their musicianship and their playing and their ears and their tastes, and so it just allowed us to have that sort of freedom to make those decisions quickly and to just go with it because that trust is there, and it's really unbeatable.
It's a
I
shared
will
taste
say.
thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first time we went into that kitchen, Sav, you were talking about that first meeting. And I remember talking to Dan, the keys player, and just like within 2 minutes, we were like, oh, he listens to the same shit that we listen to, and like he goes to the loft party, and he actually was like, oh, I've got the speakers, the sound system party from the original Mancuso loft parties. And like, we just like geeking out on all these records that we all like, and everything that they record has this beautiful unique kind of sound, and the people that we love recording with in New York like that same sound. And the approach to songwriting on the spot is born out of like something that I think we learned from Leon Michaels, from being around him and seeing how he works, and just realizing that he always talks about like this magic of that first utterance that you capture. Like, you just capture something. Like, why bother with demoitis? Why like recreate it? Of course, sometimes you do have demos, but we did for Prism. But like, why try to chase that endlessly when you can just make the song, the demo? And that I really believe that energy, that magic feeling that you capture, the listener can also feel it.
100%.
And we're so lucky, and had done improv for lots of years with like Sal P and Nya. And I used to do some improv nights. Sabrina is always just improving, just by every time she opens her mouth in the morning, in the day, she's like a song comes out. Both of them are like that. So it's like the funnest thing, and it's natural to all of us to write quickly and to write things on the spot. So when you've got three of us who it's a natural instinct, it's like really fun. And then it pours out of you, and you just think, why not? Let's get this little like practice honed in and keep doing the same thing. And it's only hopefully going to get more and more fun as the years go on.
Do you want to give a shout out to the band? Like, who, like, introduce them so they are people?
Yeah, of course. I think we mentioned some of them before, but there's Dan Hasty on the keys. There's Sergio Rios, who's also our producer, who plays guitar. And there's Dale Jennings on bass and Sam Holtman on drums. And we also have extended musicians who come on the road with us. So there's Agustin Magana from Mestizo Beat, and his brother Aquiles Magana, who also they play sometimes in Monophonics and Jungle Fire. They come out on the road and play guitar and drums. And we mentioned Terran Ector before as well, who also plays guitar. And the next run in March, we have Binky Griptite. So that's going to be the first time there's a nice joining of both the New York and the West Coast families coming together for the tour. So yeah, we're really excited about that one.
That's so cool. And it's like, I mean, all of your backgrounds, like growing up, like, I'm just curious, are they classically trained vocalists or like, how would you describe your musical background?
My freshman year of college, I studied classical voice. And before that, went to the Levine School of Music in DC when I was like in elementary school and middle school, which was a focus on classical. But after I went into classical freshman year, I was like, this is not for me. And I quickly switched to jazz voice, so which was I thought way more fun. I liked learning the languages and, while studying classical music, but the jazz and improvisation was just way more my style. So, so that's basically my situation. I also sang in choirs and choruses in schools and church, and so.
But you also were in a girl group too. So
How did I forget about that? I was in a girl group as a youngster for like 13 years. So very formative years. We were signed a few times. Didn't really put anything never really got to put out an album or EP, but we certainly did record a lot. But yeah, 13 years of my life with those girls, very formative years.
Who was it? What's the name of the group?
Well, we never really came out, but our name was Tomboy. We were called Tomboy, and
right.
we did we used to do push-ups and backflips and wear baggy clothes and grab our crotches. It was just and like it was like that because Tomboy. We were really playing that up, and some of us were tomboys. I personally was never a tomboy. So that was all an act for me, but it was
People
fun.
are
We had so
scouring
much
the
fun.
internet as we speak, trying to find Tomboy.
Don't do it. But yeah, we had a good time. It was super, super, super fun.
And how about you, Piya and Sabrina? Like, what was your entries to music? How did you get into this world?
I mean, I definitely had a lot of the Indian kind of not classical Indian training, but just like bhajans, more like religious hymns and stuff training.
Mm-hmm.
My great uncle was a famous music producer, so we were always listening to his music, and I was always learning songs in that vein from a young age. And then when I went to school, I started the classical training, and my parents really wanted me to like learn like Western classical music as well and be able to like read score and all of that stuff. And it was something that they could never do. So they had that, like most immigrant parents, very aspirational. And, my dad had corner shops, but he wanted us to like be accepted in wherever we were. And they had this kind of like a self-consciousness about being excluded. And so they wanted us to understand that language of music too, and they sort of really like encouraged me to go into classical training, and I did all my grades and I got my diploma in classical music and all of that stuff, and then just like Nya realized like that's not really what I want to do, and like I loved singing like that and doing all the competitions and and everything, and there was a freedom to that voice, but it wasn't my personality really, and it didn't feel like I'd found my culture or my people in that sort of scene. So as soon as I could go out to clubs, I was going to Ronnie Scott's and staying there, till late to try and get us to sit in on a song, and making friends with the house band. And then I made friends with a guy called Robin Banerjee, who had been in Amy Winehouse's band for a long time, who sort of said to me, look, I'm going to invite you to 15 shows and come to all of them, and by the end you'll know how to count the band in, and you'll understand how to do this and what it means to like give a performance or whatever. And so I did, and I kind of had this informal training via that way. And then when I got to New York, that's when I think I really took shape, and I think I joined a band with Zale from Liquid Liquid, and it was an improv band. It was this amazing collective of musicians who, like, some of them were playing in Phenomenal Handclap Band, the drummer called Woody, and people from the Savvy Fab, Tim Harrington, and just like Monica Heidemann, just people in the New York scene who all met in a basement under Max Fish, which was this like bar that's legendary and like a cool spot I drank at for years. And there's people from all different ages too, so that was the first for me, was like hanging out with musicians who were like in their 60s and 50s and in their 20s, and everyone it was good training for me because Sal could be really direct, and he's like one of my best friends in this world. He's taught me so much. But if I would get up and sing too much, he'd be like, lay back, listen, give it space, think about what you want to say, let him get a groove, and then step up, lay your like thoughts down, and then step back. And he was like calling me out in front of everyone if I was singing too much, all over the mic or whatever. So that gave me a training in how to like maybe listen to the band before you like start singing the idea. And so that was definitely, I think, the precursor to then just joining bands. And I was in like 4 different bands in New York. Some of them were soul R&B, some of them were singing with women, some of them were this like post-punk funk stuff, and like there's a lot of krautrock influence in 178, and it was just like pulling from everything and realizing that you don't have to be defined by your ethnicity or your training or your background. Music is like for everybody, and you can learn so much by listening to all types of music, and then the thing that comes out of you is like maybe more unique by being completely all over the place.
That's awesome. No, I totally get it. And so just kind of being everywhere, putting yourself out there, basically open to things, connecting, random things happen, right? And you just follow those random things. And you can see all those influences you're describing in your music today. And, one thing that's interesting though, I want to ask is improv. Like I think of improv, but I don't really know it. I don't know if I know it at the level of what you guys call improv, because I don't know a lot of groups that are, like besides like maybe a jazz band, right? Are you guys like literally improving off of like a melody or a vocal line, or how would you guys say improv works for you?
I mean, we don't perform improv anymore, but we channel some of the background that we all have in improv into the writing session. So basically, in our writing sessions, we will wait. Like we come prepared. We will always have reference tracks that we play that we've been researching for months before, and like thinking about what we want to do each day and making good use of the days that we have. So there's some element of preparation. But then there's the spontaneity of how we react to that preparation. The preparation is just about providing information to everybody. Hey, listen to this bass line here. Hey, listen to this track and what this is the feeling from this track. Hey, this is like a record that we've been digging and the reasons why, and explain it and like go through it in a like more kind of a natural listening way, rather than like, here are some charts, play this. No way do we do that with the band, and they wouldn't want to write with us if we did that.
Right.
Well, we have given them songs that and you can hear them on Silver. People can probably tell the difference of which ones come from the writing room of the same set of people and which ones might have been written outside of that. But on the whole, most of them are written on the spot in a day, and that's the element of improv I'm talking about. It's like catching a groove, and then of course, like you just step up, and then something comes out, and maybe you tweak the lyrics, and by the end of the day, you'll redo it or you'll arrange it, and everybody's chipping in and saying, "Well, how about this bit here?" And maybe Nya will do this beautiful ad lib, and then we'll be like, Sabrina will be like, "Oh, that's really a cool part of the ad lib you just did," and then she'll repeat that and turn it into a hook, and next thing you know, we have the chorus, or or everyone does that for each other. I think as this like moment of allowing the other one to improv and the others being the ear and kind of like capturing the snippet of it, and then how do we kind of grow this into the song. I hope that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And it's like it's so much goes into like putting a record together for a day, like all your backgrounds, all the people, the ability to actually put together something so formed, so amazing in a day is dumb. It's like ridiculous, like that you guys can do that. I mean, it's just like, holy cow, like, okay. So, like it just blows me away. I kind of assume that was like put together over months and sessions and just that's just so cool.
But in a way, that is like, they orgone that, and those are the names I mentioned. They play as orgone. They have other players as well, of course, in that band, but they are the rhythm section from orgone, and they have been playing together for 10 plus years. Some of them 15.
Incredible.
Some of them since they were in high school. Sergio,
they're idols,
and Dan.
Idols of mine. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And, they're so humble and such nice people. They're such feminists. And when we are in the room with them, they let us be in charge of the direction of our project and what it is. They've never said, no, do this. They've never inserted themselves in anything other than being so generous with their musicianship, and so like gentle in their guiding, and opinionated when it's necessary, but never like not listening to what it is we want. And I so value and respect that, because that is very hard to find.
It's very hard to nurture in a band too, like that kind of like grown up. I look at all these 25-year-old bands. I'm like, I hope you guys learn communication skills, because you guys the wheels might fall off the bus if you just like can't have that level of maturity, and like sense of like support.
Yeah. And by the way, not to speak for Sabrina, but she had to jump off. So I just, like her background, we didn't really get to touch on, but obviously we've all been friends for so many years. We know, like when I met her, she was in 2 bands, I think. One was Oracle Room, another one was Standing Love. She was singing with a big, a 13-piece band with all the horn
Wow.
section as the background singer. But me and Nya was just to be like, wow, her voice is insane and her range is so amazing. And, you know, we'd be there dancing in the audience while we'd see her on the stage. And and there was the 3-part harmonies in that band as well, so I knew she was so good at arranging. And then she did a lot of harmonies in the other band as well. That was I used to go and see them play in all the small clubs out in Brooklyn. So she was kind of, but she had done choirs and things with her when she was younger. Her sister's also a musician who plays the fiddle, so they have kind of like always singing family harmonies together, and the sister's playing the fiddle. So kind of like she kind of came up in that. I think a lot of people assume that everyone was trained classically because we lean into those elements, but there is classical training, but it's not necessarily formal. You know, it's being in choirs or doing your grades at school and doing the diploma. Naya's probably the only one that went to music school for classical music, but then switched to jazz. So, and I think Sab always talks about this. She's like, oh, it's interesting that the media thinks that, because we've never said that. Like it's just assumed that she trained classically, probably because she's white, and somehow because she does the operatic riffs, people just kind of assume that she was trained classically. But she loves the fact that actually you don't have to be classically trained and go to some elitist school or spend loads of money on a music school. If you love singing, you can be self-taught. And there's something really beautiful about the fact that we really just came up in bands in New York that were a bit more DIY punk and led by other people, but then we wanted to kind of just we took inspiration from that and wanted to do our own thing. So I think that is the real truth of where it came from.
You know, to tie it all together, like I think, you know, your live performance is so inspiring, right? Like, and you can, like, people feel it. Like you just saw, I mean, I viscerally saw it multiple times. I know so it must be such an awesome feeling, but the story of like how you guys came together, you know, this is a beautiful story of folks can do this, right? Like they can, it seems so impossible to put together such an incredible band like what you have. And just knowing, I think that, like you said, just being into singing and kind of like putting yourself out there, that these kind of things can happen, right? And you can have this kind of impact. And so, yeah, it's been really awesome to have this conversation with you. I love this. I love your just life force in the universe. Like you're going to make a big difference to lots of people. And it's really cool to be, you know, witness to it. And I'm just a big fan. So
Thank you so much, Zale. You know,
yeah.
we really are so grateful, aren't we, Nya? We just had the best time at PIckathon and with your support, and thanks for having us today. It's been so special.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, and we'll be more, right? That we're like, I wish to give you one thing. What's the future? What do you guys have another album you're working on in a day?
There's always more music coming.
We're always writing, we're always creating, and that is just, you know, that's our
so
happy place. So that's always in the works. And
we are very excited about all these tours that we have coming up. So we have a UK and European tour. There's still tickets for the French and German dates, but all of the UK dates have sold out, and we can't believe that.
Wow.
So that's really special.
They're coming out for you.
And then we're so lucky. And then we come back and we've got a bunch of festivals that haven't been announced, so we're not allowed to say exactly, but we're going to be back in the US doing the bunch of the festival scene, and then back in the UK again for the festival scene, and then hopping around back to France and the continent again. And so the rest of the year is looking so fun for us because we get to play shows all the way until the end of the year. I think we've got shows all the way till the end of November sorted. So if there's anyone out there that wants us to come and do a special New Year's Eve event for them, let us know, and then we can make it to the end of the whole year.
Yes, that's so good. Well, yeah, it's been great to have this conversation. I'm so excited to see where you go, and you know, let's keep that positive energy out there and see what kind of, you know, circle back, see what kind of stories we can like share. Cause I think that's such a good way to be in the world. And I think it reinforces the other folks that, you know, are looking for ways to do that they can do it too. So
Thank you. And just one last thing, sorry. We also have a postcard campaign that we're still working in tandem with Every Town for Gun Safety on. So you can download the postcard from our website or from our Instagram in the link tree, or you can pick up a postcard at our merch table if you come to the shows. And it's basically, we're just asking people to support more background checks for people who buy guns at gun shows and online.
Absolutely.
Because it's unbelievable
Common
to us
sense.
that people, that you wouldn't have to have a background check to buy a gun online. That seems crazy.
Here's to common sense.
We want that changed. Yeah, here's to common sense, and we hope that people support the Background Check Expansion Act. You've got to write to your senator, unfortunately, to get them to do this, because they didn't vote the last time the right way, but they can hopefully do it this time. So yeah, that's our little bit of lobbying. So thank you. And also anyone who's listening, hopefully you're already doing this already, but please put in your letters and tell everybody why you need PIckathon to get the license, and why we think festivals like PIckathon need to keep existing.
Yes, we're gonna be, in one way or another, we're gonna stay optimistic and gonna, like, this. It's a rejuvenating. We like to say it's like falling in love all over every year. So so thank you, everyone. This is the end of PIckathon episode 34, and you'll probably, next one will probably be kind of getting closer to the festival. We're gonna hopefully know on this, like, the 27th, and so we'll talk more about that, and we're gonna start having some conversations about 2024. Hopefully stay optimistic, and bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
You've been listening to the PIckathon podcast. This podcast is produced by Zale Schoenborn, Tanner McCullough, and Evan Throckmorton. Our artwork is by Travis Bone, and additional support by Ryan Stiles. The music you heard in this episode was by our guest of honor, Say She She. The songs included were Forget Me Not, Norma, and the one we're riding out on right now, C'est Si Bon. Be sure to check out our PIckathon Patreon, where we have exclusive interviews, content, and insights into the PIckathon world. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you hear your podcasts. And tell a friend about where they can get on the PIckathon bandwagon. Thank you to the whole PIckathon family. And like Zale said, we'll catch you all next week.
C'est si bon, c'est si cher.